The ocean has always been my sanctuary, a vast expanse of blue where I could lose myself and forget the troubles of the land. As a seasoned sailor, I had seen it all. Tempests that could split a ship in two, serene sunsets that painted the horizon with hues of gold and crimson, and everything in between. But nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered on that fateful voyage. We set sail on a crisp autumn morning, the air biting and the sea calm. Our destination was a remote island known for its rich fishing grounds, a routine trip for my seasoned crew. The skies were clear and the wind was favorable, promising a smooth journey. I was at the helm, guiding the vessel with a steady hand, feeling the familiar thrill of the open sea. 3 days into our voyage, the weather began to change. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the temperature dropped unexpectedly. The sea turned choppy, and a thick fog rolled in, swallowing our ship in a blanket of white. Visibility dropped to mere feet, and an uneasy silence settled over the crew. I could feel their anxiety, a palpable tension that mirrored my own unease. That night, the fog was so dense that even the ship's lanterns seemed to be swallowed by it. As I stood on the deck, peering into the murky gloom, I heard it, a faint, eerie wail carried by the wind. It was a mournful sound, unlike anything I had ever heard before, sending shivers down my spine. The crew, too, had heard it, and whispers of unease spread among them. The next morning, we found ourselves adrift in the middle of nowhere. The compass spun uselessly, and the GPS signal was lost. We were truly alone in the vast, gray void. As the hours passed, the wail grew louder, more distinct, echoing across the water. It seemed to come from all directions, an omnipresent lament that gnawed at our sanity. On the fourth night, as I stood watch, I spotted something in the fog, a dark shape looming in the distance. My heart raced as I squinted through the mist, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Slowly, the shape took form, revealing the silhouette of a massive ship. Its sails were tattered, flapping like ghostly shrouds in the wind, and its hull was covered in barnacles and seaweed, giving it an ancient, eerie appearance. I called out to the crew, and they gathered on the deck, their faces pale with fear and curiosity. As the ghost ship drew closer, we could see more details. The name Eldritch was barely visible on its bow, the letters worn and faded. It was a name I had heard before, whispered in hushed tones by old sailors in dimly lit taverns. The Eldritch had vanished decades ago, along with its crew, rumored to be cursed. Against my better judgment, I ordered us to approach. We needed answers, and the ghost ship seemed to hold them. We maneuvered alongside it, and a boarding party was assembled. I led the way, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. We climbed the weathered ropes and stepped onto the deck of the Eldritch. The air was colder here, a biting chill that seemed to seep into my bones. The deck was covered in a thick layer of dust, and the air smelled of decay and salt. As we explored, we found no signs of life. No crew, no bodies, nothing. It was as if the ship had been abandoned in an instant, frozen in time. In the captain's quarters, we found the ship's log. The last entry was dated 50 years ago and spoke of strange lights in the sky, a thick fog that appeared out of nowhere, and the crew's growing madness. The final entry was a scrawl, almost illegible, but one word stood out: doomed. As we stood there reading the chilling account, the temperature dropped even further and the fog thickened. The wail returned louder than ever, a haunting cry that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the ship. The crew panicked, scrambling to return to our vessel, but the ropes had mysteriously vanished, leaving us stranded on the Eldritch. I tried to calm them, but my own fear was rising. The ghost ship felt alive, as if it were a malevolent entity watching our every move. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, and the walls seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. Desperation set in as we searched for a way back, but the Eldritch had us in its grip. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, we heard a new sound, a deep, resonant horn that cut through the fog. It was our ship, signaling us. Relief washed over me as we raced to the side of the Eldritch, where our vessel had miraculously reappeared. We hurriedly crossed back, and as the last of us boarded, the ghost ship began to drift away, disappearing into the fog as mysteriously as it had appeared. We set sail immediately, desperate to leave the cursed waters behind. But the wail followed us, growing fainter but never truly fading. The crew was silent, their eyes haunted by what we had experienced. As the fog lifted and the sun rose, I thought we were safe. But deep down, I knew that the Eldritch had marked us and our journey was far from over. We reached the island with a sense of relief, but the nightmare was only beginning. Strange things began to happen on our ship. Objects moving on their own, whispers in the night, and a pervasive feeling of being watched. One by one, the crew members started to disappear, vanishing without a trace. Panic set in, and the remaining crew turned on each other, driven mad by fear and paranoia. I was left alone, the last man standing on a ship that felt increasingly alien. I knew I had to uncover the truth about the Eldritch and its curse, but time was running out. The ghost ship had left its mark on us, and I could feel its grip tightening. As I sat in the captain's quarters, surrounded by the echoes of the past, I realized that the answers lay in the final illegible entry of the log. There was something there, a clue that could save me or doom me entirely. I stared at the faded ink, willing myself to decipher its message. And then, as if by some dark magic, the words began to clear, revealing a terrifying secret that would change everything. The ink on the logbook began to swirl and shift as if guided by an unseen hand, and the once indecipherable scrawl transformed into clear, horrifying words. The captain's final entry spoke of a ritual, an ancient curse placed upon the Eldritch by a forsaken island tribe. It was a curse of eternal wandering, of madness, and of souls forever bound to the ship's decaying timbers. I knew then that our fate was sealed unless I could break the curse. The answer lay in reversing the ritual, a dangerous and desperate move. The instructions were vague, filled with cryptic symbols and phrases, but I had no other choice. With trembling hands, I gathered the necessary items: an old rusted knife, a piece of blackened wood, and a vial of murky water that had somehow appeared in the quarters. As night fell, the ship seemed to come alive, groaning and creaking as if aware of my intentions. The wail returned, louder and more insistent, a cacophony of anguished souls trapped in eternal torment. I made my way to the deck, where the fog had thickened once again, and the air was heavy with malevolence. I began the ritual, chanting the ancient words inscribed in the logbook. The wind howled around me, and the sea churned violently. The ship seemed to resist, shuddering beneath my feet as if trying to throw me off. Shadows flitted at the edge of my vision, and I felt a presence watching me, waiting for me to falter. As I completed the incantation, I drove the rusted knife into the blackened wood, and a piercing scream echoed through the night. The fog swirled violently, and a blinding light erupted from the deck, engulfing me in its brilliance. I felt as if I were being torn apart, my very soul ripped from my body. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the light vanished. The fog lifted, revealing the calm sea and the morning sun rising on the horizon. The Eldritch was gone, leaving only the gentle lapping of waves against the hull of our ship. I stood there, panting and drenched in sweat, feeling an overwhelming sense of relief and exhaustion. The crew began to reappear, one by one, confused but unharmed. The curse had been lifted, and the ghost ship's hold on us was broken. We set sail for home, eager to leave the haunted waters behind. As we navigated the familiar seas, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. Back on land, we went our separate ways, each of us haunted by the memories of that voyage. The tale of the Eldritch became a whispered legend, a warning to those who dared to venture into the unknown. Years later, as I sat by the fire, recounting my tale to a group of wide-eyed listeners, I felt a chill run down my spine. The wail of the Eldritch still echoed in my mind, a reminder that some curses never truly fade. The ghost ship might be gone, but its legacy lived on, etched into the very fabric of the sea. And sometimes on quiet nights when the fog rolls in, I swear I can hear the faint, mournful cry of the Eldritch, calling out from the depths, a ghostly reminder of the horrors that lie hidden beneath the waves.